Evelyn and welcome to Embrace Therapy podcast. I am a practicing art therapist based in Ireland. In each episode, I will interview guests from various fields of therapy and well-being with the aim to encourage healing through embracing therapy. On the podcast today is music therapist, Sister Evelyn Horan. Evelyn became a music therapist after travelling to Peru in 1984. We discuss her journey since then as a music therapist, her experience working in New York during 9/11, her experience working with all ages as a music therapist in Ireland. I really hope you enjoy listening to our chat. Evelyn is now an honorary member of the Irish Association of Creative Arts Therapists, and it's an absolute pleasure to introduce to you today Evelyn Horan. So Evelyn, I have you on today because we met at the IACAT AGM and you shared some beautiful stories, and I just want people to come on here and tell their stories. Yes. I suppose you're a music therapist. So for everybody listening today, I suppose it's just hearing how music therapy has shaped you as a person as well, and how you found music therapy. And that's, I think it's going to be such a beautiful story for everybody to hear.
Okay, it'll be quite, what would I say? It won't be too flowing too in sequence or anything like that, but however it comes out, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Evelyn, you are from Sligo originally?
I'm from Sligo. I was born in Cork and spent the first years of my life in Mitchelstown. My father was in the creamery there.
Lovely.
So we moved back to Sligo. He was from Sligo. My mother was from Kerry. So I really spent my formative years in Sligo.
Yeah. Oh, a Kerry mother. Wow. That's...
Yes, indeed. She was a character. She was a character. And I left my little village in 1965 and my home place is gone. So really, I'm gone from there for a long, long time. So my home has been wherever I have found myself in the meantime. And that has been a few different places.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Home isn't a house. Home is what you bring.
Yeah, exactly. Wherever you are. Home is where the heart is, as they say.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, so I make the most of it. Yeah.
And you joined the Sisters of Mercy, and then you became a teacher. And
a primary school teacher, yes.
Yeah.
Which was a dream of mine as a child, was to be a governess. You know, I think I was really taken by the sound of music.
Oh, yes.
So when in those days, you didn't get a choice as to what you did. You were told.
Oh, yeah.
But I was one of the lucky ones. It suited me fine. I taught little ones 4-year-olds for 10 years.
Wow.
So I learned a lot from them. And, you know, I learned how to improvise without knowing what I was doing. That wasn't in my vocabulary. So everything I did through singing, I kind of bribed them really through songs, you know, and transitioned from one thing to the other through songs, a lullaby to quieten them down. And, you know, kind of, I felt in a way that even though I knew nothing about music therapy, the music in myself was connecting with those, and I kind of saw what would work for them. The trouble was I would sing a song one day and the next day they would say, sing the same song. So I would say, well, yeah, but I'll sing you the next bit of that song, because I had forgotten what I had sung, of course. So that was me improvising before I knew what it was about. And then, of course, in music therapy training, improvisation became a very big thing, big thing. But through all that time, in those days in the schools, we used to have little boxes, you know, for the black babies. So they were very dedicated to putting pennies in there. And I was always doing something about helping to build a church or a school in Africa or South America. And then after 10 years in school, I lost my voice completely. I had nodules removed from my vocal cords. I wasn't able to speak properly for 2 years. I couldn't sing for 4 years. I had been a soprano. Now I discovered when I had a voice, I'm a contralto. Well, that happens with years anyway, I think.
Yeah.
But So that left me at a crossroads, really, in my life. And I was told, no way could I go back to school again. Well, after a while, I went back and did what they call resource teaching now for a little while. But then in 1984, an opportunity came up to go to Peru. So I really jumped at it. Even people said, your voice won't last. The sun and the sand will kill you. But you know what I discovered during that time when I was voiceless? I began to be able to sing in my heart with people. I couldn't make the sounds, but yet I felt, gosh, there's a sound of silence that's very important and very powerful. So I would sing in my heart with people. And I was on a course doing liturgy and church music, and they used to call me Whispering Hope, because that's all I could do was whisper.
Oh.
But when that time came then to go to Peru, of course, I still would sound as if I have chronic laryngitis, but I went there, and once again, I was voiceless because I had no Spanish.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful way for me to be able to identify with the Peruvian people because they're voiceless in their own ways too. So in my silence, I was able to just journey with them. And all they wanted from us was to walk with them and accompany with them. They said, really, we don't need big programs or anything like that. And I know that the song that had led me to it too very much was I Have a Dream. And I remember way back being at a teachers' meeting in our school, and we were talking about our hopes and our wishes, and we got into what is your dream? And I remember saying, I know it's something to do with music, but I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily want to be a music teacher, but I want to use music. So that began to link with Peru. And my first song to learn in Spanish actually was I Have a Dream.
Oh, gorgeous.
And I went out to the desert one day for a little service for kids who were leaving school. And the song they sang was I Have a Dream. And I looked at their eyes, so full of hope. They had nothing, but they had dreams. And afterwards, I asked each of them, what's your dream? And they would want to be leaders in their community, and they would want to make the world a better place. So it was as if that theme followed me, really. I used to work in a school then for children with special needs, and I used music, but oh gosh, I felt there has to be another way I can use music here. And one day I was in Lima, in the city, in a dentist's waiting room, and I see this article in Spanish in the Reader's Digest, Music's Surprising Power to Heal. I said, there it is. So I just closed the book. I said, that's it now, that's my search. So, of course, I inquired in Ireland. There was nothing, music therapy hadn't started yet.
No,
this was about 1993, 94. So the course in Limerick hadn't started as yet. But I did search it out. And I remember meeting Jim Cosgrove, who was very inspirational in the early years and had a wonderful dream for a music therapy program in Ireland. So then I started writing and whatever you do to the States, to different colleges. And the most warm response I got was from New York University. Incredible. So before I knew where I was in New York University, never in New York before. And people saying, don't go near the subway. And of course, the first thing I had to do was get on the subway and make my way to New York University. Very disappointing. It's only a scatter of buildings all over Union Square. And whereas I was thinking of, the campus in Galway and DCU and all these places, no, there were little old buildings all over the place. But anyway, I went on that journey, and you had to audition and all this. And of course, they wanted me to play classical music. I said, listen here, I'm after 10 years in Peru, so really my classical music isn't great. So I danced and I played Irish music, and I sang in Irish and I sang in Spanish. So I think it wasn't what you would call the conventional interview. But anyway, the interviewer said, okay, you're in. Now, it was wonderful, but for me, I was 50 when I just started that course, and I'm with young people in their 20s and all this. But, as the time went on, we forgot the age difference. We were all going through the same program. I suppose clinically, I might have had a little bit from my experience. I'll tell you about that in a minute while I was in New York. So I think that kind of helped me through it. But now I was also faced with professional musicians from Japan and China and all of this, professional singers and musicians. So it was like this huge melting pot. But the experience was so rich. I mean, my internship was in a place, it's a big word, the Jewish Board of Family Children's Services, and that was up near Carnegie Hall. So I literally walked by Carnegie Hall every morning, and I said, gosh, this is talk about being part of the scene. But the provisions that were made there for children and families, it was unbelievable. So I felt I was in a very safe and secure place. So there I was again with little children, you know, which would be my first love, really. So I learned a lot from them. There were children with mild challenges, you know, but yet, and I learned through that, I think the essence of music therapy became a reality for me there, you know, through breathing, through the voice, through drumming, through very simple things, through song singing, of course, which is so powerful. But I found all of those, and especially children who were nonverbal, through drumming, you know, and when they need to kind of, one little fellow who was really hyperactive, I found that through drumming, it's amazing what would happen. He would come in and furiously beat the drums, and I would match his furious rhythm, and then gradually I might slow it down. And then Henry, we'll call him, would begin to slow his rhythm down too. But all of the time, that was teaching me a lot about myself too, and how I could cope with stuff. Not that I put it all into practice, but I certainly managed it. Now, if you want to ask me questions, ask Vicky.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess the theme that I'm pulling from everything is that music was a big communicator for you, and it transcends any language, that it was with you when you were voiceless and that whisper of hope. And then in Peru as well, when you didn't have the language of the natives there.
Yes.
And then again, when you were in New York, working with the Bronx and in the Bronx and children who might have learning difficulties. So you've found a way of communicating, like psyche to psyche, soul to soul.
Yes,
with
absolutely,
people.
Absolutely. And through the very basic things, as I say, of breathing and rhythm and songs. They were such a powerful element of it. Then I worked in a hospital in the Bronx after I trained, and that was really an amazing experience. It was a Jewish hospital again. It was interesting that this is where I found myself. And as well as music therapy, I had the job of coordinating spirituality. Now, there was every creed and every lack of creed and everything, but my job was to see that they were all catered for. I got on very well with everybody. The old Jewish rabbi, the only one who didn't really like me was the imam. He didn't trust me for a while, but we managed after a while too. So that worked out all right. I think it all came together for me on 9/11 when I got into work. And, you know, it was one of those beautiful September mornings, and I walked up the street and went down into the subway, which is dark and dreary. But that very morning, there was an old man playing a violin, and he was playing Morning Has Broken. And I felt, my gosh, he has taken some of the darkness out of this weary, weary underground. And then on the way on the train, people were whispering, and I knew there was something going on, didn't know what it was. But when I got to the hospital, people were running frantically all over the place, and some screaming and some saying, no, that's just a movie that's on television. People were unbelieving.
Of course.
So then my job that day was to gather everybody in the auditorium, as we call it. And I said, and do what? I was just told, do something. So we sang and people prayed, and in their own language. And of course, we sang many times, God Save America, you know, and you had to pick songs that were suitable for everybody. So, of course, Amazing Grace was one that worked fine. And as we were in the auditorium, the man, a tall, black man who delivered the mail every day, he was standing at the doorway. And as we were singing Amazing Grace, he began to sing in this beautiful baritone voice. And I said, come on up, Michael. So he came up and he sang that song, and you would not hear a pin drop in the auditorium. So it was as if all creeds and beliefs, we all became one that day. And up into the middle of the circle, a woman came, an elderly woman, wheeling her husband in a wheelchair. And she said, you know, she said, we hid in the woods in Poland for 3 years. We were Jewish refugees. And she said, when we sailed into New York, I saw the Statue of Liberty, and I said, this is our saving grace. And she said, I still believe that, even though today has happened, she said, we are still free, and it's up to ourselves to be free. So we sang, and people drummed, and you could hear, you know, in the drumming, you could hear the grief coming out, you could hear some hope coming out, you could hear the desperation. And yet, the whole thing of music was such a unifying force that day. That was the only one thing we all had in common. So I remembered words from a psalm which say, they go out full of tears, they come back full of joy. But I felt on that day that that was reversed. We went out full of joy on a beautiful sunny morning. I came back to Times Square on that evening. It was absolutely deserted apart from police and military. So it was, the music was silent, whereas in the morning there was the thing of the, you know, the cacophony of sounds in New York, horns blowing and all of this. And I used to try to imagine that I was listening to the waves of the ocean when I heard the traffic. I thought, gosh, let me make music out of this. So that very day, it was as if everything was reversed. But it is something that will certainly stay in my memory. But it was a very poignant moment in my whole music therapy experience, I would say, you know.
And it's, you know, every year, I'm sure it's still bringing back those memories quite vividly. It's a huge trauma for the whole of the United States to go through. And as you as an individual then to have to hold such a big space for people.
And yet you realize that the music does it. All you have to do is put it out there and the music takes over, which is very much like a session in music therapy. You have a fixed hello song, but what happens in between really is up to the client. You know, they kind of lead their own process. So, you know, I thought, my gosh, it's amazing on a day like that how it can work. I suppose there was a part of me that felt, could I have been more there for people on that day? But we were all in the same boat. We were all in the same boat. And as I said, the music really did it. And I actually worked with another music therapist who was Jewish, and she was beautiful. So side by side, we worked and we played and we sang, which was wonderful. I think you can stop me now if I'm going off course. And another experience in that hospital was a drumming circle. Now, everybody was in wheelchairs, and another music therapist and myself, we coordinated this. But their first song when they came in was a song which said, I am a bright light, perfect just the way I am. And here they are, and some of them hardly able to lift the drumsticks, and for some of them we'd have to lift the mallets for them, but they could do it. So one day there was a group called the Grateful Dead. You wouldn't remember them, before your time.
I know them. Yes.
Mickey Hart was their lead singer.
Lovely.
But he was in the hospital one day. So he was running around in the drumming circle, beating the drum and singing, I love the doctors, I love the nurses, I love everybody here. Meanwhile, there was another woman, I hate the doctors, I hate the nurses, I hate everything here. And he was kind of astounded. But I try to explain to him, they just need to express what they're feeling, you know? And in the middle of that, one of the women we discovered, she was actually smoking a cigarette, which was totally taboo. And they all started, look at her, put her out, put her out. But there was a man who had motor neuron. He couldn't speak, but he called me over. And he just wrote down and he said, how about a little mercy for Mary?
Yeah.
I thought that was powerful. So, you know, so there it was, the old drumming, like, it's amazing how it is carried through in so many different ways. Yeah.
My husband's a drummer, and drums are very important in his life. And I've worked in St. Patrick's Hospital in Dublin as well, and they would have had drumming circles. So I've seen how it can be so transformative for somebody like my husband, age 3, finding the drums as a way to express himself all the way till now. And then also in mental health services, seeing its benefits. It's just fantastic.
It's the whole. Well, you see, I think it is resonating with the beat of our hearts too, and how whatever happening in our hearts is coming out in the drums. Now, I'll jump a little bit to back in Ireland, connecting the drums again. The privilege and wonderful joy of working with asylum seekers, with Kerry O'Connor, another music therapist. Now, the gift of working co-therapist is just beyond words, really. It makes such a difference. Kerry is years younger than I am, and I was the old lady, but we worked very well together. And I learned so much from her because she was newly qualified and full of enthusiasm, you know, and here am I, the old experience, but it worked very well together for us. But there again, we took some songs, and well, I was with them for a year myself before Kerry came aboard, but 8 in a group, all different languages. But when it came to the drumming, of course, they were all into their own cultures, and the drumming carried many messages for them. But like that, there were no words that could connect us, but the whole thing of the drumming did it. And there again, I had asked them once, they would all know I Have a Dream. They would know ABBA. So I got each of them to write I Have a Dream in their own language. And it was very powerful how it came out. Very powerful. So, yeah. So then Kerry and myself, there again, the percussion instruments came really into their own there, you know, because we had no words really. And we asked them, and we would say to them, tell us your favorite song. So we shared the songs. So we sang some Irish songs. You know, the one they picked on, Molly Malone.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Oh, they loved Molly Malone. And some of them actually had visited Molly Malone in Dublin. So, you know, we could have had other more sophisticated songs, but Molly Malone was the one that really spoke to them. So, yeah, that was it. Now, I feel you might need to ask me something, Vicky. I'm going on and on.
No, you're fine. So for you, would you have an instrument of choice that you like to use? Like, what's your go-to instrument, would you say?
Piano would be my go-to. Piano and guitar, but piano mainly. And, well, guitar, I learned out of sheer necessity when I was teaching junior infants. Yeah. It was an instrument that was accessible, and they could take part because I would do the fingering and give them turns coming up strumming. So it gave them a great sense of success. But the piano, I had the keyboard in those days, so you would have your back turned to them, which wasn't a great idea. So keyboard now would be my main instrument. But like, it's funny, through COVID, I haven't used it as much as I would like to. But every week I resolve, I'm really going to get back to it now, you know. Yeah.
And how has the pandemic been for you? Because like, having been through like a disaster before in 9/11 and now this, like, did you feel like there was some part of you that was ready for it in that way because you've been through something similar, or how does it feel for you?
Yeah, it hasn't been bad. I have a medical condition which requires that I go to hospital 3 days a week. So, you know, already that was pandemic for me. That's going on for 4 years. But yet the nurses there and the other people there, they kind of became my bubble. You know, one of my consultants says, who's your bubble? Oh, I said, where I go for my treatment, you know. So I can't tell you that the pandemic has acutely affected me. Of course it has, in the sense I wouldn't have seen family and that kind of thing. But because I have that constant thing and that regularity of meeting those people, they are my constant. So look, I don't like it. I don't like it. But I am so grateful to be safe so far. So really, I don't think of the disadvantages much, to tell you the truth. I feel bad for younger people and for children especially. I feel are really being deprived now. Like, they can't sing. They can't sing in school. How I wouldn't have survived as a teacher without being able to sing with children. So, you know, it certainly is calling forth from us every single thing we've got.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing, isn't it? I think when these things happen, like you experienced before, it's like we all need to get together and have a sing or have some play or something, you know, some creative outlet to express it.
Yeah. I'll tell you a thing I have been doing a lot during that time. I did a course in guided imagery and music, which is a receptive form of music therapy, you know. another retraining after music therapy, and that really went deeper and deeper and deeper. It was a course started by a lady called Helen Bonney, who was herself a music therapist, started in the 70s. But it is just a wonderful way of just getting into the subconscious or unconscious. And I found that from my own self-development, it was wonderful. So during the time of pandemic, I have found that by putting on some of the music and just journeying with it and creating mandalas, or mandalas as some of them call it, they have been very powerful for me. So I would quite frequently just put on a selection of classical music and just color a mandala. And that has been my go-to a lot, I'd say, during these times,
So lovely.
I'm not artistic. I'm definitely not artistic, that's for sure. When I was in primary school, I would say to the children, I am going to draw a pig. What am I going to draw? A pig. I draw the pig, and a little fellow said, that's not a pig. So in the end, I would get Simon to come up and draw the animals for me if they needed to be drawn. So, you know your strengths and your weaknesses, but I think you learn you don't have to have it all, that you have a lot you can receive from people as well.
Yeah. And just like you, having, the whisper, you found a way still, like the essence of what you're trying to say is always there. So it's the same with your pig,
Absolutely.
The basics is there, the curly tail is enough,
Right. Yeah. But you see, as I said, you would love to have it all, of course, because it's a gift to be able to draw something. But, you have to just use other people's gifts as well. So I suppose for me, it is the learning that has happened for me during music therapy. And sometimes I say, well, what am I learning? I can't put words on it really, but I just know that it's such an essential part of my life, Yeah. And when I play now for things, I might play for an occasional funeral or a celebration or something, but I have to put a lot more work into it than I used to, because when it was all part of life, it just came very natural to me. But then it's good. It's a good challenge. Vicky, just as doing this podcast is a huge challenge for me, because I'm kind of thinking, I've done that now. I'm retired and there I am, But something keeps calling me out from that, which is good. Is good. Like when, was it Aisling asked me about the conference, I nearly died. And I nearly died before I spoke. But, you do these things, and I think it's good to be called out of your comfort zone at times, really.
Yeah, well, connections were made then. Now, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I found there was such a richness there of people much younger than I am, and people enthusiastic and, setting out on the journey. It's just wonderful to be part of that, really, and realise, look, at whatever stage we're at, we have a part to play in it all. And that's really good. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so important, isn't it? Every step of the way to have that engagement in the passion that you have, for yourself. And I suppose there's a real sense of like meaning making in the work that you've done, like a lot of purpose. And I can imagine that the people that have worked with you, the individuals or the groups, have made meaning and shaped, I suppose, their experiences with you, and maybe some resolutions have come, and
Yes, and you can only hope. You can only hope. It's always a hypothesis when you write a report that this possibly could have happened, But an interesting thing was that for my final paper for my master's, I wrote music and finding one's voice in the music therapy process. So that was a great experience for me, and I was working with little children at the time. So that really brought out a lot of the richness, and I learned something from them as well. You would learn something about music from those children as well, because you would learn what doesn't work and what does work for them, And if they don't like what you're doing, they'll tell you, So you have to just work through that and hope for the best. But yes.
And I suppose at that age as well, it's all that regulation part can be so important. Like you're saying, just breathing,
That's right.
coming back to themselves. And just as much as you are now with the mandalas, it's that grounding coming back to yourself.
That's right. Yeah, the grounding is such a wonderful part of it. I know when I worked with asylum seekers on my own, you were playing a dual role, really. Whereas when Kerry and I worked together, she was the grounding and I was the processing. So it was just beautiful to see how that worked, you know. Yeah. And I was struggling. There were no instruments there or anything at the time in the centre. It's in the North Circular Road. And I would go up on the train every Thursday laden with instruments. A friend would go with me. But then Kerry came along. He says, Evelyn, do you mind if I order things online? And Kerry just arrives with the boot full of instruments one day. Of course, I said, of course.
Incredible.
And she's a bit of a tech guru as well, you know, so that's a help. That's all a help. So I think the thing is that whether it's with other therapists or with people we work with, there's a complementarity. There's a thing we learn from one another. And I think too, working with adults, when I hear some of the struggles that people have come through, it's unbelievable. You know, I had a wonderful experience of working with about maybe 35 very retired sisters. And they would all have been teachers and everything, but they were tired and they had pains and everything. But I used to go to them every Thursday. And it was amazing that how they would come to life. And that's 3 years ago now. And sometimes they would ring me and say, Evelyn, we still do what we can on Thursdays. We're getting more feeble, but we do on one leg what we used to do on two legs. Yeah. So with them, I would do a lot of poetry and music. And of course, songs are so powerful for people. You know, for memories, good for their breathing, good for their connection with other people. So all of that. And as they say, we're doing what we can now. And I said, yeah, but I'm not able to do what I was able to do either. So, you know, you just do the bit you can and hand it on and hope for the best.
Yeah, but you're still learning, you know, that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Absolutely learning. And yes, I have that thing that I owe to myself to get over there and sit down at the keyboard, you know, and now that Christmas is coming, get over there. I would probably do it after today now, you know, once I put it to myself, I do it. Yeah. But as I said, music therapy has been such a gift in my life that I never dreamt of. You know, when we were children, I would sing with my family. We'd have stoves in a can and we'd have a washboard and we'd have saucepans, and that was our orchestra. And I remember putting on a concert for our parents once in our hallway, and we had a lovely Foxford rug on the back of the chair. So we did our thing. But like there again, with family, it's a very powerful connecting thing. You know, there can be tensions, there can be all of that. And yet when you come together, there's a harmony in the singing, you know, that says that music can transcend all of that. Yeah, so it does.
Did anybody in your family play music or sing? Did your mother sing?
Oh, yes, my father did. My father sang and he played the fiddle. My grandparents did. When we were kids, we'd be taken to my grandparents 3 or 4 times a week, piled into the car. We'd have the tea and fresh soda bread. And the next thing, my granny would take down her concertine and my uncle the flute, my father the fiddle. And before we could dance, we danced. You know, that was it. And then we all fell asleep in the little bed in the kitchen, which was old-fashioned. But that happened. So it was kind of... And my father would sing in the car. I think it was partly to keep us quiet. But of course, the kind of songs he was singing would be The Banks of My Own Lovely Lee, often The Stilly Night. And for the life of me as a child, I couldn't fathom. There's a line in The Banks of My Own Lovely Lee where it says, where the maid with her lover, the wild daisies pressed. Well, I couldn't know. What were they pressing daisies for? And of course, I couldn't ask my father that either, you know. Yeah. So there were old songs that I was singing at a young age. I could sing them, but I had no idea what the lyrics meant, you know. Yeah. There was another one, Flowers of the May. And as a 4-year-old singing it, and you go to school and there's this thing, our full hearts are swelling. And my poor little 4-year-old, there was nothing happening in my heart, you know, so, so it goes to show. And I suppose there's no point in trying to explain those things, you know.
But there's still that feeling was, you know, I'm sure there was something that you got from it, you know, that kind of
absolutely.
Feeling.
I loved just to sing songs in school. Our master, he taught us all the rebel songs. Kelly, the boy from Killan, Ireland boys, these were all the ones. I think I didn't care as long as I was singing. You know, I think that was the big thing. So I suppose singing has been the thing. I have two brothers. One is trad, he plays the accordion. The other plays guitar, he's heavy metal. So they are poles apart. But we do come together sometimes, you know.
Lovely.
But
isn't that wonderful?
Different cultures within the one family.
So that's wonderful. Oh, that's so gorgeous. I think for families, like you said, that, like, you know, even in the last year or nearly 2 years now, when we have been in lockdowns and we've been confined to our houses, I do think people have got creative again. I do think they've gotten in touch, you know,
I think so,
taking the dust off the guitar and the concertina.
I know my brother, he lives in Waterford, but he goes to a friend's back garden. The friend has constructed this little thing with 3 open sides. So he goes to his back garden every week, and so far, so good.
Lovely.
But people just have to be creative. Now, once or twice I've gone to a friend's house and there were 3 of us and we sang for about an hour, which was good too, you know. But you do miss the little connections, don't you?
I was in a choir. It was in Dublin 8. It was called the La 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 choir. It was just this beautiful choir. We rehearsed in the Fumbly, but I would have left maybe 2017.
Oh, you were with Kerry O'Connor's in that, isn't she?
I don't know. Maybe I could have met her already. I'm not sure. It's funny to think of it that way. We could have crossed paths, but this particular choir anyway was gorgeous. And I had my little girl in 2017, and I said I'd go back, but with the pandemic, I just didn't get that opportunity to go back. But hopefully I will. Because singing is just something I love to do.
It is. It's so well, as they say, music reaches both sides of the brain. So when you're singing, you're engaging your whole being, which is wonderful. I sing quietly here sometimes. I'm in an apartment, so I can't afford to be lifting the roof, you know. But I do put on music and sing and dance. One of my brothers gave me Google Home, so that's wonderful. Google Play Jive, Google Play, so that gets me going.
Yes, so it's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Like, I feel like we could chat for hours. It'd be so nice. But
I have waffled, Vicky, but
not at all.
It's the only way I can do it. Yes.
Not at all. You didn't at all. It was beautiful because you have moments of real, like, heartwarming moments in your life, and it's so lovely. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share them with us, because you know it's such an influence to people, I'm sure, especially those that maybe are in teaching and don't know how to make the next step to become a music therapist, or someone who's a musician who's feeling that connection with people already. You know.
And thank you for asking me, Vicky. You know, when I was thinking about it, I thought, what is it like? And, you know, I feel my life is like a weaving. It's unfinished. There are lots of loose threads. There are bright colors and dark colors. It's unfinished. So I don't know what the next part of the weaving is, or the next part of the symphony is, but look at, I suppose, being open to possibilities. And I have to say to IACAT, thank you for taking me out of my comfort zone and just for challenging me to just acknowledge what life has been and what life can still be, you know. So thank you, Vicky, very much.
Thank you.
I wish you the best in your work, and I know what a voice challenge is, so the best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
And edit it well, Vicky.
And continue weaving.
I will.
It's so beautiful. Yes.
I hope it won't be all. It will not all become unraveled. If it does, I'll ravel it again.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye. Bye. Bye.